I don't want to do it. What are you, crazy?
City leadership, city council. Yeah. Tattoos on his arms. You recognize him? Oh yeah. So who's the tattoo guy? Do you remember who he is?
My name's Steve Little. I know a lot of you guys, not everybody. Somehow, I was asked to welcome you all here, so I sincerely welcome you here. I do remind everybody, it's illegal to discharge a firearm in the city of Portland, so let's keep it peaceful, okay? So, Danielle asked who was or still is the city attorney. You wearing two hats?
No.
Okay. Interim city manager?
Yes.
Right, okay. She's gonna head up the meeting and probably kick things over to Neil Snyder, right? Can I say that?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, good. So, want to introduce yourself?
Sure.
We'll go from there. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you. I wanted to say thank you for having us again. It's always great to be out here with all of you and hear from you and your concerns. We have a lot of staff here who can respond to your questions. If we don't have the answer for you, obviously we'll try to get that to you and follow up afterwards. As you said, I am Danielle Westy, interim city manager, former city attorney, not wearing two hats right now, only one. And I'm going to have staff introduce themselves, and then I'll kick it over to the mayor for some comments. Starting down there.
Kathy Office, Public Buildings Director and Waterfront Operations.
Kristen Dow, Director of Health and Human Services.
Hi everyone, Heath Gorham, Interim Chief of Police.
Hi, I'm Jessica Grondin. I'm the Director of Communications. Ashley Grant, City Clerk.
Christine Comando, Director of Planning and Urban Development.
Mike Murray, Public Works. Ryan O'Gurn, Island Supervisor.
Bill Patton, Island Liaison. Hey everyone, Andrew Zarro, City Councilor, District 4.
Hi, I'm Victoria Pelletier. I'm City Councilor for District 2.
Hi, John Padrotta, Parking Division Director.
Mark Dion, District 5.
Good afternoon, Keith Gautreau, your Fire Chief. I also have Captain Alvis out back and Chief Hendricks that do all the work.
Hi everybody, Ethan Hipple, Parks, Recreation and Facilities Director.
Hi everybody, I'm Kate Snyder, Mayor. I got to see many of you last summer, so thanks again for hosting us. I just want to say we're happy to be here. We're happy to listen to concerns and questions that you all have. I'm lucky to be joined by 3 members of the council with me here today. You've got district councilors here from districts 2, 4, and 5. Along with me, there are 3 councilors who serve as at-large councilors, which means we represent the whole city. So if ever you need anything, you can reach out to the full council, you can reach out to me, you can reach out to your district counselor. And like I said, there are 4 of us who are elected to represent the whole city. So don't ever feel like you don't have a pathway to the council if you need one. We work really closely with staff, and I'll end on that note, which is we're incredibly lucky to have such competent and professional city staff who obviously execute policies established by the council, but they really do all the work in terms of managing the city and making sure that we're safe and the investments are well made. So I want to shout out to staff who's here today in support of everything that we as Portland residents need. We have longtime people serving in these roles, so that institutional memory is really beneficial to all of us. So thanks, city staff, and again, we're just happy to be here.
So I think that's it in terms of our introductions. I'll say also to follow up on what the mayor said, if you ever need anything, obviously Bill Patnode, who right here, he's a great resource for you to contact me. You can contact me directly at the citymanager@portlandmaine.gov email address. And I'd be happy to follow up, directly and try to help you find the information that you're looking for. I also just want to follow up on what the mayor said. These people around me who I've worked with for a long time now, they do the lion's share of this work, and we're very lucky to have them. They have all of the skills in the basic areas that they've been assigned to, plus some extra information that people need, like here's Mr. Murray. Mr. Murray has a wealth of knowledge down there at all times. I may have worked with him all in the past. So want to open this up for questions. To have you guys jump right in. Obviously, this is your time to hear from us. So I will turn it over to you, and right in the back.
How's the city doing on plans to implement LD 290, this tax stabilization?
Oh, we actually just got an email about that. So I think it's best managed by you.
Yes, actually, I don't have a ton of direct information on that, but I think Dina, my chief of staff, could provide you with some information.
Who asked that? Was that, okay. So we're ready as of August 8th, I believe we'll begin accepting applications. They're on the website already. You can find them on the assessor's page, I believe, on the city website. We were really waiting for we didn't have a role in the development of that application, so the state took care of that. We heard from them in the last couple weeks that it's good to go, so starting next Monday, we can send in their application. Great. Good.
Right?
You're ahead on something. I'm excited to hear that.
Quote you.
I know. That's great. I'm sure there's other questions. Anybody else have anything?
I actually wanted to hear more about what that is about.
Certainly. Dina,
I'm gonna pull it up because
She's
the details
gonna
are
pull it
up.
up.
Why don't you want to do the next question? I can do a little.
I got the notes here.
Please.
Okay. Unless it's changed,
It hasn't.
and I looked on the website again this morning, it's the state passed a law that says it will stabilize property tax bills for people, for 1, 65 years or older, 2, they're a Maine resident, and 3, they had a homestead in Maine for the last 10 years. Now, that doesn't appear to me to tie into the homestead exemption requirement. They're just using a very similar word to confuse us. But it doesn't, the stat 290, LD 290 doesn't define homestead. So basically saying if you've been a resident for 10 years. So it freezes your property taxes at current level as long as you own that property. And you have to apply every year. I think it was by December 1st to have it apply to the following year's tax bill. So it's not like the homestead exemption where it's once and done it forever. Every year you apply. And then the state will generously give in decreasing amounts as they cheap out on us, they'll reimburse the city for the lost revenue. But, you know, that's not gonna last forever, but that's the plan. All right?
Yeah, that's right, and the application will need to be renewed every single year.
By the non-residents.
Is it for what?
Primary residents only.
Yeah. Yeah.
About the millings that you put down, the millings that you put down, have they been tested, you know, if they have heavy metals or anything like lead in them?
The millings that were put down that come off of Portland roads, to say they've been tested, no, they haven't been tested. It's the first inch we're taking off. Basically, if you're in the city today, an example would be Stevens Avenue. They're come off dry, they're, you know, and then generally they sit at our district road facility. We've got a wealth of them there, and we've been using them on the mainland and on other islands for several years now.
I understand on the mainland, there wouldn't be much concern, but on an island which has one aquifer, there might be a concern to us. I don't know. So you're saying it hasn't been tested, there may or may not be lead or heavy metals in it?
I couldn't say this.
And even if it did, you wouldn't know if they would leach out anyway. Is there any way to find out? Is there any way to find this out?
We can check with some of our public works experts, you know, who deal in this more than we do. You know, I won't say we will be able to have them tested, but we can always try a sample here and there.
Thank you.
Yeah, in the back.
If you look up recycled asphalt product online, it is known that it contains heavy metals and lead, and it is leachable. It certainly leaches out into the soil and water supplies. And it was an experiment here, and in the interest of the benefits of the island and the health of the island, those several places, it was supposed to be put down in one place, I understand. It's been put down in 4 or 5 places. It should be removed before our wells and our soils are affected.
After the meeting last year, where it was agreed that an experimental area would be tried, I was out last year with some representatives of the island. We looked at a couple of areas, and then this year, ultimately, the determination was made, and it was made by me, that you know, we would look at the areas that are the most prone to washout, and to see if we could stabilize those areas. So there were more than a couple of areas. I believe there's 4 areas that were used. We did stop. We removed some extra millings that were here, brought them to another island for use, and all I would ask is that you give them a chance to work through, you know, not only the summer season, the fall and the winter season, and then we'll make a determination in the spring.
Meanwhile, this stuff is leaching, and it is a source of incredible heat. It adds to the heat on the island. When you walk on it, you can tell that it's a source of heat. It's not a healthy substance to be put on a fragile environment.
Adding to that, the people who are being experimented on are we. It hasn't been tested. If it hasn't been tested for its potential harm, then why are we the guinea pigs? We put it out here, and we're the ones that have to deal with any possible water pollution. As a matter of fact, there was a suggestion that a glass of water be placed in each one of your stations so that you could experience the anxiety of not knowing. And lead doesn't go away. A fraction of lead is not permissible elsewhere. Lead stays with us forever. It comes out here, and when it washes off, if the stuff washes off, which it probably will, it will pollute the waters around the island, which then impact the fishermen on the other. So I mean, it's like an experiment is being done. You're saying an experiment, but the persons who are have to deal with the consequences are us.
I use the word experiment based on the fact that that's how it was described to me when I was out here on the island last fall, that we would do that it would be an experimental process to determine whether or not, the millings would work better in certain areas than the traditional gravel roads.
But what was not accounted to was the fact that these millings are toxic.
Sir, I don't know that it's not toxic either.
Yeah, but you don't know whether it's not toxic, but then the non-toxicity should be proven before it's put down on our roads and our properties.
Sir, I explained this when I came out a couple weeks ago. It's standard practice to use asphalt in communities with wells. And I even mentioned it as, my own house, I have an asphalt driveway and I have an asphalt road, and the well has been tested, and there's no indication of any lead or poisonous chemicals. It's the standard throughout the state. The asphalt that was put down here came off of Portland roads. It's just the top 1 inch layer that has been pulled off and put in a pile. We put it in, we didn't add anything. There's no chemicals added, which in a lot of cases, when it gets reprocessed, that actually happens. We added nothing. And all it is the loose top level, ground up asphalt off of roads that already exist in the city of Portland.
Those are roads that have absorbed spills of oil, gas, rubber. All of those things have accumulated on the top level of
But it's the same as if you have gravel roads and your cars with oil and gas are leaking onto gravel. You leach into that surface just as much.
But they're not delivered there. One could argue that the road that our vehicles ought not to be here either, but that's not possible. And the road, that stuff has already been doused in whatever pollutants have been done by cars and the amount of use that those roads have had.
I think, we'll take a look at it further. I think that we are using them, as Mike mentioned, on other islands, and is used as a product throughout the city. And we'll, try to look into it further and see if we can get some more information on that. I do recall last year us discussing this issue and sort of talking about using this product. I understand there's some concerns now, so we will look into that further, and see what additional information we can provide.
After you look into it, how do we get the answer?
Well, we would follow up with you. And if we, I'm not saying that we will, I have to understand what needs to be done, if it's a concern that needs to be addressed. As I said, if it is, we're using it all throughout the city and all throughout the state.
So everybody can talk.
Everyone would be exposed. It's a product that is used pretty widely. We're using it on other islands as well. And I need to understand, what we're talking about here in terms of ramifications. There may be concerns, there may not be. We just don't know at this point. But I'm willing to look into it a little further and try to get the people who are more educated in this area than I am to provide us with additional information if that's something that's within our realm to be able to do. And we would follow up with you on that once we were able to obtain any further info.
Can you guys talk for us also on the topic?
Oh, great. I'm Ben Walden. We spoke last year too. I think there's a lot of concerns about the roads. Obviously, having the public works come back out again and having to discuss the millings. The roads are in pretty crappy shape. The roads, you brought up standards, and the roads don't meet any standards at this point. The shoulders have not been knocked off in as long as I've been here. You guys graded up here a couple 100 yards. Did a nice job on the crown. The shoulders still haven't been knocked off, so the water's still in the road. They're on top of the fact that you're bringing out material that's, at this point, clearly probably not taken well by the island. The maintenance, the general crowning, the standard road construction hasn't been met. There's been discussion, there's been an email that's went out that said, you know, we're gonna do this, this, and this. There's never been a time frame. When we left this meeting last year, the town, you guys said to us, oh, before I leave, which she left after about a month, I guess, we're gonna take care of this. We're gonna get the roads fixed. That was, here we are a year later, and we're still having the same argument. We're still going back and forth. The roads have not been crowned. They have not been fixed. Ditches have not been cleaned out. Shoulders have not been done. This work just needs to get done. And I don't know how to hold you guys accountable for the work that needs to happen out here. I'm happy to give you guys the standards. You guys should have them. But they're not being met out here. The erosion that happens during a storm is immense. You can come down to the cove and it's muddy out there. It's not acceptable. So how do we hold you accountable?
We spent 2 months out here working on various treatments for the road, including the millings. Hold on, Mike.
How many days did that grader work in that 2 months?
It wasn't every day, because some of our crews were on.
We had public standing with arms in front of our equipment shutting us down. That's why we went away.
But during that time frame, you know, when I say 2 months, on days available for the public works crew, they were assigned to Cliff Island to work on roads. Certain days of the week, the crews do trash. Aside from the island worker who works on this island, they do trash on the other island. They come together for 2 or 3 days, they do heavy item pickup, and then they work on roads. They left here last week. Are they here every day? No, they're not. They work 4 10-hour days. So in the course of a week's time, to get them out here 2 or 3 days a week, that's what we can, that's basically what we can do with the crew. So to tell you how many,
I was just gonna say, I'm not the most knowledgeable on this. I've been talking and fortunately been able to listen to a number of people who really have done researching, and Ben is actually a civil engineer. I think one of the things that I heard that was really telling to me was that if we really had the roads created correctly, Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, you said that there was a 1% difference in the integrity of being able to maintain the integrity of the road between gravel and the stuff that we don't really want here. That there's not a big advantage, and so that the concern that we had is that the millings went down without the crowning, without the shouldering in most of the places, and so if that's really not going to help the problem. You know, we can't just, it's not putting you know, I'm in healthcare, it's not a Band-Aid. I mean, that's a Band-Aid, and it doesn't really do it. When you have done, when the other things have been done, they really worked effectively, and that's the crowning and the shouldering. And I think that's what we're really asking for, and we know you can't do it all at once, and I want to make sure that you guys don't feel like we're saying that you're the enemy. We want you to be our partners. We really need you to be our partners to actually have this work for the island and work for all of us in a really positive way. And we know, and that's what we're coming to you, because you really are. We need to be in partners in the decision making, and we need to be expect that if you say you're going to put it in 2 places, you're not going to put it in 6. That if you're going to come and shoulder it, that you're going to shoulder it but it sounds like you started to. I mean, like there's some work that was going in the right direction. So if we could just have like a timeline and have some commitment to this is phase 1, this is going to be phase 2, and then this part is the part that you're going to really focus on, and not just putting a Band-Aid on that is something that's not making people happy.
Man, that section we did, that was, Roger had asked us to pick a section.
Yeah, great.
Cut it back, crown it, and do it, and we did.
Yes,
and that took the crew 2 days, and then we had to get the equipment off the island because we have other islands. So that's, and he also called that an experiment, and we're going to look at it in the spring, and if it held up, then that's what we'll do. And obviously the millings is not something that you wanted. But that's not as an island, because when I was here, we've heard from many people from this island, many of them that aren't at this meeting, who wanted the millings, who liked the millings, and who asked for more millings. So there's two arguments here. Those of you who don't like it, and those of you who do. But we understand it's controversial, so we're gonna try that other experiment, but we ran out of time. So next year, we'll do another section. And like you said, we can't do the whole island in one summer. We just don't have that much time or gravel or the resources.
I think people are very fed up with having dangerous and unusable roads. I think that the millings are their only option. Some people are willing to go with millings. But even the places where we have millings, you still have to crown and do shoulders and etc. And so I think it's a mischaracterization to say that the island is divided between millings and not having millings. The island is united in wanting cared for roads. And they have to, the things that Ben is talking about have to be done to them, to the roads, no matter what substance is put on. And if we have that done properly, we don't need to bring out these new different substances.
That's not necessarily true, because if you have a soft winter, the minute Bill takes that truck down the middle of the road, there goes your crown. Every gravel road has a crown taken off in the winter if it doesn't freeze. I've been doing this for 42 and a half years. I can assure you, if we put a crown on it, he plows, that crown's gone, you gotta re-crown it. The state re-crowns all their gravel roads every year.
Can we do
You
that
gotta do
here?
it.
So, hold on a second. But that's general maintenance. The shoulders, if you get the water off the roads, then you're just looking at general maintenance. What we're asking for is not general maintenance. You guys, I give you credit. You do the general maintenance. You bring out 200 yards of gravel every year, and you spread it out. But you don't cut the shoulders down. So all that material is still getting washed out. If you don't do the actual grading of the entire road, including the shoulders, including the ditches, you're just putting Band-Aids on.
Let me add to that. I live by the experiment area. The ground is nice until you get to the edges and it goes up like this. So it's a really nice, it looks like a swan. You know? And where's that water gonna run off the ground? It's gonna go right down the road, it's gonna wash off, and we're gonna, in fact, that area has already got ruts in it. And we haven't had hardly any rain.
Would you think it'd be productive if we held a separate meeting out here just to discuss this?
I think so.
Talk about, we can come back in a few weeks with a phased plan for looking at the.
I think that would be a great idea.
And I'll say something positive too. When these guys come out and work, and they're on the island, boy, they're humping. They really are. They're cranking and, working. But I was going to actually take a picture of that grader every day. I'm a summer resident, by the way. Been coming here 50-some years. My family over 100 years. But I was going to take a picture. I think that grader sat there for 21 days. But it didn't move. 21 days. What's the cost a day? $1,000, $500, $300. And then he came on, and boy, for 2 or 3 days, it was bam, bam, bam. In fact, I think you were out here, weren't you? I mean, if I recall, the guy in the blue shirt, right?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you guys were cranking, but then you disappeared for a week, or 3 days, or 5 days, whatever.
Part of it is getting the equipment out here. So we rent the equipment, and then we try to pre-position it so that when we're ready to go. So we had to get the equipment out here, and then we had to get the millings out here, and then we had to get the crew deconflicted from everything else that we were doing. So there's a phasing of this.
What's it cost to get that roller out here and let it sit there for a month without being used?
Well, we rent it for the summer. We rent for the whole summer, because we don't do just Cliff Island, we do the other islands as well. So we're gonna rent it, and then if we can't get to it right away, it's gonna sit somewhere. So we can put it on another island. But it's basically, because we start here, we have it pre-positioned so that when we're ready to go, we're ready to go.
You take the taxes paid, 10 houses on the west side, northwest side of the island, you can buy all that equipment, and sit it here at $365. Pay my 1 year taxes, okay, from 10 houses.
We will set up a separate meeting where if you want, and I'm happy to get you some, price quotes for what equipment is costing now, if we can even get it. We're waiting right now, without going into details, we're looking at a 2-year backlog from manufacturers, so, for our needs, for 3 months out of the year, or 4 months out of the year, or 5 months out of the year, rental is an easier way for us to go. But we can discuss all of that in that meeting. And I'll talk with a couple of you to be points of contact for that. So we can set it up before people leave for the summer.
Two quick points, just to maybe close this out. One, it appears from what I've heard, and I know Frank already has some scientific data about the leaching issue. It appears that most every municipality in the country has kind of turned a blind eye to that, because they've got these big pile of millings they want to get rid of. So we're just like Portland, ahead of the game in a lot of things, thanks to the good work of you people and your staff, and the LD 290 issue. But maybe we can get ahead of the issue of whether or not these millings have some toxic chemicals and they shouldn't be used anywhere. Second issue is, seems to me that the plan may have jumped ahead a little bit, put the cart before the horse, by putting down some of the millings without crowning and taking the shoulders off first. So we kind of put the frosting on the cake before it was out of the oven.
But like I said, we won't be able to get to all the roads it's gonna be phased. So then we don't, we wanna repair the roads that have potholes in them today. So that's why we did the millings. It's kind of the Band-Aid. Eventually we get to the point, but at least that road is fixed. The south road is fixed.
Right, but what we're talking about, I'm just talking about the experiment. If we're gonna experiment, you wanna set up your standards and your controls, etc. And collectively, we all missed, I believe, we all missed the fact that if we're gonna determine if the millings work, now we have to have the surface prepared correctly beforehand, and then at the end of the experiment, what worked? The crowning, the edging, the millings, some of them, all of them, none of them, whatever. So maybe that, when you come out again, Mike, keep that, those thoughts in focus, please.
So you proposed some planning meetings, would there be a timeline on commencing those planning sessions?
Yeah, I said within the next couple of weeks. Before some of the seasonal people leave.
Before. Don't mean that big a meeting.
Is there other questions you have? Want to talk about?
I just want to, oh, yeah, the fire alarm lines.
Yeah, they didn't go off.
Where are you?
Where?
I think half of our toolbox lines are inoperable.
And wires are down
And have been for
a few years.
really long.
This is the alarm that sends into dispatch you're talking about, not the sirens, right?
No, the sirens.
Siren is part of it.
This is the sirens on the
What
island.
What I learned probably 2 years ago was that doesn't ring up in the big city. But all that is local out here. And all along, we had thought it was ringing at fire department HQ.
If a pull box here is pulled,
Yeah.
that it does not register.
Not directed dispatch.
But nonetheless, being the island far out here, we're in a vulnerable situation with both our sirens and not having those to alert people to whatever needs to be done. But we still have not received any kind of training out here, and especially this year where we're looking at how dry everything is, like, I feel like we're waiting for a disaster to happen as far as a fire. And we haven't had training in probably 7 years. The sirens are down. We had probably 2 working pagers out here, and unfortunately we still need pagers because our cell phones don't work everywhere on the island. And so our fire department has kind of felt a little beat down by not getting the support, and including our fire chief here. And I will speak for him. So those things we really appreciate those being addressed. I have many hats out here, as all of us do. And one of my roles is being part of a group called Sustainable for Violence. So we look at things that we identify as needing to be addressed in order to sustain ourselves as a year-round community. And you guys have been to all the other islands. We all have our own personality, and you can figure out what those are as soon as you walk through the door. We like to think of ourselves as pretty self-reliant, and we like to think outside the box and create our own things. We brought broadband to ourselves when the city couldn't do that for us. We have a little wellness center as just a way to help people here who live here year-round to age in place, to take care of their kids. You know, we work really hard to do what we can. And and roads are part of that too. You know, it's all safety issues. One of the other things that has been taken away from us, and this was quite a few years ago, was our polling place. And Bill has been wonderful as far as bringing out the absentee ballots. Always lovely to see him. But having, I don't know how to explain that the chipping away of little things, they seem like just we needed a cost saving, so we're taking your polling place away. Oh, we have a cost saving, we need to take this away. Oh. And for a little community like this, as we get chipped away, it really becomes very wearing. It sort of makes us feel like second-class citizens. And I have to say that quite honestly. We don't always feel heard. You know, this whole thing about the roads, I think it's just sort of an example. Like, we complain about it year after year, and we're not meeting. Like, our heads are not connecting together. We're not working as a team. And that's really, as Martha said, that's really what we want to have happen out here. So we bring our concerns, and not lightly. And that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, my name is Steve Knight, and I'm from away. I live in, my wife and I live in Wallingford, Connecticut, which is a town of about 45,000 people. And only other thing about myself that I'll mention, and it's germane to what I want to say, is that I spent 14 years as a town councilor in Wallingford. So. And we're all at large. So we represent the entire community, all the neighborhoods, all the people. So in that 14 years, I learned a lot about town government in a lot of different ways. And so when I come up here, I view Portland, I'm the home here, so I'm a taxpayer, and I'm happy to be a taxpayer here. Portland is a very special place. But I gotta tell you, if I may just read a couple of paragraphs of things I thought of. Casco Bay and the islands in it are a rare treasure. If you come from Portland, you may not be aware of it. Of us that live elsewhere, I've been on the Casco Bay Lines ferry probably 200 times, and there isn't a single trip that I've ever made that I don't marvel at what you have here. It's a unique asset, and I understand that Cliff Island. There are a few things about Cliff Island that maybe things would kind of slip your mind. We wouldn't necessarily be, we wouldn't be the first thing you think of when you think of the islands. Obviously, because Peaks has such a large population, and you literally can see it from Portland, they get the lion's share of all the attention that the city government is willing to give. Now, it's understandable to some degree, but a place like Cliff is almost unique, an almost unique community. And as Cheryl said, very self-sufficient. I also write newspaper columns for our local regional paper. And I write columns about Cliff Island. And I can tell you that my readers love to hear about Cliff Island because it's so special. And that goes for every island that's part of the city of Portland. But because we're such rural character, we're almost a rural neighborhood, if you will, of Portland. And you can't see us from anywhere in the main part of Portland. And you know, I can understand how maybe we're a pain in the neck to some departments, because we have very few voters from a political standpoint. We only have 45 voters. So from that standpoint, it's hard to get excited about Cliff Island. But I'm telling you, you have a unique asset here. A unique asset that does require some special attention. And what Cheryl said, and I will repeat, that this road is a symbol of the frustration that as Cheryl said, people out here feel like second-class citizens. That's not good. Now, you guys all have lots to do, and you're going to go back on the boat, and we won't see you for another year. You'll hear from us, but we're 8 miles away, and after you hang up the phone, you go on to the rest of your hard work. And you do a lot of hard work, I get it. But what you're hearing here are people that are trying to build a permanent community, and they need their city government to help that. So, thank you. Good.
On a positive note, I'll just quickly give ditto to what they said. You can see, when we have a problem, we try to solve it. We needed better internet. We formed a corporation. We raised the money, and we put in our broadband. We needed a wellness center to help sustain it. A lot of time and money went into putting that together. That's going to be a big help. That'll save some fireboat trips, etc. So I think, to put it real quickly, is when we complain, it's because we really got what we believe is a legitimate complaint. But on the kudos side, okay, police and fire department. Probably about a month ago, late one evening, there was a kid who was lost, kind of ran away, but couldn't go that far, but we couldn't find her. Called 911. In pretty short order, we have, I think it was 3 police officers and half a dozen firefighters out here, and pretty soon we had the lost child kind of surrounded. Thank you guys, your departments, for doing that. Public Works, I think everyone appreciates the effort you guys put in, and you're thankful. It's just a thankless job. So nothing personal, we just pick one of those thankless jobs. And my other two, well, parking, thank you guys for, we're planning to take building too much stuff in the city, taking parks off. But we thank you guys for the Island Lottery thing down there for extra spaces. That's been helpful. And my, oh yeah, right. Large item pickup this year was really well. And my last interaction up at City Hall was in the city clerk's office, and called, said, can you do this and that to renew my notary and get sworn in? Bam, come on up at this time, we'll get it done. So, good job there.
When will we be able to register our golf carts online? Like we can our boat, our cars, our trucks. It seems crazy. I arrive at 6 a.m. flight and I wait around at my 8:30 appointment at the Treasury to write my $32 check. Well, 64 for 2 carts, but why can't we do that in a month? Golf cart registration.
We'll get an answer from Treasury to you.
It's the abandonment fee.
It's a yearly question.
So the answer that I got was, it's because of the abandonment fee. So the city of Portland charges an abandonment fee for unregistered vehicles that need to get off the island, which is not part of the normal, right?
What, dude, like they did in the
So-
40s off the end of the year.
So, and I've called and tried several times to get vehicles off the island, and the city doesn't do that either. We have to do that on our own. But the abandonment fee is why it's not online. So if you could take the abandonment fee off, that would be great. We just continue to take care of our vehicles on our own.
Sort that out.
How can they be abandoned if they had to be registered to begin with to get here, didn't they? How can they be abandoned? They know who to look for. They look for those people.
Of course they do.
Right.
They're still here on this island.
Yeah, then you've been destroyed in the firearm.
I'm gonna ask a question for somebody else very quickly. Our dock, we recently found out, is now owned by the state, not the city. So in the winter, who takes care of the dock? Who shovels it off and who empties the trash?
Uh-oh, I don't know.
Just a good question. I don't know. Yeah, that's what I wondered.
The state hires somebody on peaks. The state hires a contractor to handle the
Oh,
dock on
really?
peaks.
And on Diamond too, I would think.
The contractor, we don't touch it. We don't touch anything state.
All right. So we need to talk to the state about that.
Who was doing it, Bill?
Yeah, yeah,
Because we own it.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess you need to talk to the state,
Okay,
find out what they're gonna do.
yeah. Thank you.
I'm just curious, the other islands, do they take cars, abandoned cars off the other islands, the city of Portland?
The city does not. People have to pay to have their cars removed.
Yeah, we don't remove any cars.
Then why are we paying an abandonment fee? What's that all about?
It's so that, I guess it was an issue at one point, that there were all these abandoned cars on the island and that the city had to deal with them. And so they put it on the registration, which is not part of the normal registrations, which puts us so you can't register online.
I will have more information than you even want on this. Probably next week.
But we just brought all this down.
Yeah, this is registered in town. Okay.
And one other thing, I know we told Maureen like this before, but Bill Bloomquist is doing a great job.
I don't understand something. It sounds like the city, we're part of the city except when it costs them money.
Yes.
Like you know, the state is now taking over that. But that was formerly the city's property and we're part of the city and they have some concern about what goes on our dock because we're part of the city, except when it costs them money. And except when there's a problem, when there's a problem that doesn't involve the city directly, because we're not part of the city, we're told to deal with the problem on the dock. I don't understand what that's all about. I mean, there's a reason why there are times when you don't want to be part of the city, and you can take care of things better yourself. But that's not, I don't understand. That's all. I mean, it seems like every time it costs some money or some inconvenience, it's somebody else's problem, not yours. And we're not part of the city. but we are when other things happen. We're not part of the city when it comes to the roads. We're not part of the city when it comes to dumping shit on the roads that could be harmful. Could be. Not ascertained that it is. Could be. But we're getting that could be here. And we're part of the city. It just doesn't make sense to me.
I think in the majority of situations with docks around us, Kathy, can correct me if I'm wrong, the state owns the majority of those. We had owned this up till a while, but it is something that the state does maintain on peaks.
Cliff Island was the only wharf in the state that the state does not maintain. And from a cost point of view, Casco Bay Lines destroys that wharf.
Oh, yeah.
We've spent $500,000 in 5 years on that wharf, and it just wasn't sustainable. Cheryl, I will say the state is coming on September 1st. The maintenance team from the state is coming to the island on September 1st. And I'll see if I can get an approximate time for you.
Yeah, you can send it to Dave, you have days.
Right, yeah, and I'll let you know. We just got an email last week from the state about that.
They have come down, they've upgraded, they've done things down there, they've talked to, the powers that be here on the island, they've been great. So we just need to clarify that.
Okay, and I'll get back to you on that.
Thank you.
This might seem like silly questions, but, we do pay a lot of taxes out here, and we know that it's not a cheap place to maintain and take care of it. What of the total budget of Portland is allocated to all the various services on Cliff Island? I mean, is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5%? And if so, then whatever that number is, what are the top 2 or 3 or 4 major expenditures? And if we had an opportunity to discuss that, would the Cliff Island folks have an opportunity to recommend shifting portions of budget from pocket A to B to C to accomplish goals that we might personally have that are not necessarily coincide with your goals because we don't seem to be communicating what those goals are. So that's a big question, I realize. So how much money, how much do we get? What are the top buckets goes into, and can we have a voice in allocation of those funds?
So we don't separate the budget for any neighborhood in the city, islands or otherwise. City services are allocated across the entire city, so we don't do that on a percentage basis. There are numerous services that everyone takes advantage of that basically everyone pays for. So that is not something that we've ever specifically allocated or would even have the numbers for specifically. But we do have, obviously, during the CIP process, a point where everybody's advocating. Your district counselor, Councilor Trevorrow, as well as other city councilors, as the mayor mentioned, are at-large councilors who represent the entire city, do make requests specific for islands. And so that is a point in time where we would be looking at like capital improvements and so on. And that would be, I will tell you, it would be in a list or in a line with a bunch of other priorities, but those are things that do happen every year. There's also a portion of our budget where we, work on other things that become priorities. So I would continue to implore you to reach out to your city councilors, to reach out to staff, to advocate for the things that you want. Because those are the people, especially the city council, that they make those final budgetary decisions. They do that, as you probably already know, in mostly April and May of each given year. And so that would be the time to make those requests and really push those priorities that you're talking about.
Yeah, because I was thinking, if we're 1.27% of the total tax, payments in this, I'm sure it's not that number, but are we getting at least 1.27% services of that budget? And I think that's something we'd all be interested in knowing. If we're paying $10, are we getting $9.50 worth of services because 50% has to go for overhead or allocation of supporting services or whatever?
I feel that request and understand it. I remember my grandfather when I was little would constantly complain. Meanwhile, he had, I will tell you, 18 grandchildren in the school system, that he didn't have any kids in the school system. And why was he
You had a very smart grandfather.
would laugh about that and be like, what about me, Grandpa? I'm using the school system. And I think that's the hard part, is that we, all of us, pay for, whether right or wrong, in this country, in this state, in this city, for services that everyone takes advantage of. And that is not something we parse out, that's not something that we separate. It's a bunch of different services, including schools and fire and police, and I mean, you could go on and on and on. And it's tough, because I understand you're like, well, I'm giving you this amount, what am I getting back? So I hear what you're saying, but it's not something that we specifically separate out.
I think the problem with that answer, and I think everyone here is happy, I'm happy to pay my property taxes to Portland. I think the problem is that we feel that we are not in fact sharing in those services. When I pay property taxes and then I find that the fire service on the island is not supported, so my property is not even being adequately protected against fire, and that the roads are impassable in the winter, that we are not getting those services that all the other neighborhoods are getting. There are not other neighborhoods that do not have, and I understand that our situation is a little bit different, but we are part of the city of Portland.
I hear you, and I definitely feel that, and that's why I think it would be great to have Mike come out and talk about those specific concerns with regard to the roads. And I said, as I said before, please feel free to reach out to me with your concerns. I'm gonna bet you do go off the island though, I'm gonna guess, and maybe use some of the services downtown, so I would hope that you're accessing some of the things that we offer within the city, as well as just the services on the island. There are broad things out there that we've done throughout the entire city that I would encourage everyone to use, and your tax money is also going for that as well. So I would encourage you to use and access all those wonderful services that are throughout the entire city.
I just would like clarification on the 911 calls. Either I didn't hear it or didn't understand. What is the result of our complaint about the 911, the sirens on the?
We'll look into that. John Belanger is our fire alarm tech, that sometimes you may see him out here with a bucket truck trying to repair that. I will say this, and I've said this to every island this morning and this afternoon, some of that technology is World War II technology.
Yeah.
It truly is. And so when we are walking around with iPhones nowadays, I would rather spend some money on newer technology. I heard you loud and clear. I spoke with Dave this morning about the pagers and considering maybe Minotaurs that might work better on the island. But I understand you're that far, much further away. And cell phone towers are hard to hit out here. So we will make those changes. I'm really not interested in putting $50,000 into the fire alarm system and sirens out here. But what I am interested in doing is a few $1,000s that we adequately get notification. So I'm work with Captain Alice and Chief Hendricks, and we'll look to get him out here, because John's really good about assessing what's going on there. Because I'm hearing that there's wires down. We just want to make sure it's safe, first of all. There isn't a lot of voltage going through there, but we want to make sure that that's safe.
My concern is that the island is so small. If we have a fire on one end of the island, how are the people on the other end of the island going to know there's a fire?
Right.
Concerned.
So with this new technology, if your
talked about that last year.
Yeah, if your cell phone is working here, you can make calls into town hall. Yeah. We pay for a subscription that you can sign up, and the app costs you nothing. All we need is your phone number.
Right.
And you can know
last
anything.
year, so it didn't happen last year.
Yep, we're working on 3 other SOGs and protocols at Cushing, LDI, and you guys will be next, and we'll have a protocol. So, yeah.
Just to follow up on that, I think last year there was some mention of improved radio communications from sort of in the direction of Cape Elizabeth, that there was some discussion of that having some public safety implications, and also potentially cell phone communication implications. I was just wondering if there's a new update on that, if that's still moving forward, or if there's a new timeline or anything like that.
Well, it's not only moving forward, it's done. Okay. So the tower is up, and Captain Alice said that on the backside of Peaks, it improved coverage. I don't know if you guys are seeing if there's any improved coverage. We didn't, so, okay, you would be the barometer for me if that's not the case.
No, we had a 911 call down in the Cove over on that side last year, and I had to leave the scene to try to get signals, so
Okay.
I'm not getting that yet.
One other thing that we could do, because I do know that Dave has a radio, right, portables, the radios. One thing we just talked about at Great Diamond Island is bringing a repeater out here, potentially. And then if you turn on that repeater, David can call directly into the Marine Division, into fire alarm, and then that's the quickest way to do that. Those are pieces of equipment that we can take out of older apparatus when we turn over trucks. We have 3 new trucks coming within the next month, so we should have some of that equipment that might work. And David knows exactly what I'm talking about, so he and I can chat, and we'll work together to make sure that. But first and foremost, let me see if I can get John Belanger out here to do an assessment of all of your old stuff that's not working, hanging down. Everybody in the room wants the sirens to work?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, I just got to throw it out there. Just had to throw it out there.
I just want to piggyback a little bit. In years past, we put a lot of effort into the sirens and keeping them going. The chief's not wrong. Obviously, it takes a lot of maintenance. So we can have John Belanger come out, next week in one windstorm. We're right back where we are today. So what we're trying to do is look for technology where we're not, cyclical in that repair bill. And it is expensive. Just one of those sirens can be, blows our budget right out of the water. So, it's not a guarantee tomorrow he could be out here. The next day, one tree takes it down, and that'll be out. And you're not the only island that I complain. It's just a really susceptible system to damage and things like that. So we are definitely working on something else that will succeed.
Well, I think we've come to the end of our time. I want to thank you all for having us out here again. I know these conversations are tough, or maybe just they're tough for me, not for you. But I appreciate all of your thoughts, and we took a lot of notes, and I know staff has as well. I know Mike will be following up, as others will be. Once again, thank you, and we look forward to hearing from you again. I know that I'll say it one last time, make a plug. Please contact staff as necessary, me as necessary, but also your city councilors. Like I mentioned, Councilor Trevorrow and any of the other councilors, the mayor, anyone, if you feel like you're not getting your needs met or you want to have just that direct contact with the city council, please do that. I know everyone's pretty responsive, and we'll try to get you the answers you're looking for. So thank you. Thank you.